My name is Linda Hochstetler, and I'm a social worker and psychotherapist. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about what a developmental framework is for understanding human development. We know from famous psychological research in the 1950s on rhesus monkeys by Henry Harlow that humans need more than food and shelter to develop fully. There's also social needs of infants and children that are more necessary for the brain to grow its potential. Anyone who knows me well knows that I apply a developmental framework to human development. After studying many different developmental psychologists, I return over and over again to the work of Erik Erikson. Erik Erikson was a Swiss-born psychoanalyst and ego psychologist who studied with Anna Freud. And unlike Sigmund Freud, who focused on sexual urges on equal ego development and the nature side of things, Erik focused on social urges and the nurture side of development. I too side on this. Personality development, according to Erickson, takes place through a series of crises that must be overcome and internalized by the individual in preparation for the next developmental stage. His own last name changed from Hamburger to Erickson, and this was the catalyst for his own resolution with his own identity and helped him resolve his issues that had limited him prior. He's credited with coining the phrase identity crisis to describe the conflict one often feels between parts of one's identity that are dissonant with other parts. He lays out 8 stages of psychosocial development, and according to him, these stages are: Number 1 is infancy, and this is trust versus mistrust. In this stage, birth to 18 months, infants require a great deal of attention and comfort from their parents, leading them to develop their first sense of trust, or in some cases, mistrust. Human infants are extremely vulnerable and reliant on their parents to care for their every need. They can't find food, walk, or protect themselves in any way for months. Taking in food is the most important first priority for all infants, and they must like and tolerate food immediately, whether in the form of breast milk, formula, and then eventually solid food. The second stage is called early childhood, and in this stage, it is autonomy versus shame and doubt. Toddlers and very young children ages 18 months to 3 years begin to assert their independence and develop their unique personality, having tantrums and expressing defiance. No, this is really common. They are developing will and trying to decide what they will and will not do. They often want to do things on their own, whether feeding or moving around. Toileting and determining what to do with their urine and bowel needs becomes not just a practical consideration, but often a power struggle between toddler and parent. It's common for parents to place shame on children for their natural interest in their bodies and what they can do with the body, and imply some moral reaction to what's really quite instinctual and very innocent. The third stage is the preschool years, and in this stage, it is initiative versus guilt. Children at this stage, ages 3 to 5 years, begin learning about social norms and roles. They love role-playing with various roles they see in their social environment. Their imagination will take off at this point, and they often like to pretend they are their parents, going to work or doing chores around the house. The defiance and tantrums of the previous stage will likely continue, but may be more complicated or seemingly manipulative or calculated as they watch closely the responses of others to their behaviors. Children in this stage are huge explorers and have wide interest in understanding the way the universe works. The way trusted adults interact with children will encourage them to act independently or to develop a sense of guilt about any inappropriate actions. If parents inhibit initiative, children may develop shyly and with little confidence. I like to remind parents that children do not naturally behave. A child that behaves is a child that has shut down their own initiative to favor the safety of making the parents happy over their own development. The fourth stage is school age, and in this they practice between industry or competence versus inferiority. At this stage, children, ages 6 to 11 years, are usually attending school full-time and may spend more time with peers at school and daycare than their parents. They are building important relationships with peers and are likely beginning to feel the pressure of academic performance. Children may exhibit competition amongst themselves and develop complex rules and rituals to determine who is fastest, smartest, or can win games. Ideally, children have plenty of unsupervised time with other children to do free play and make up their own rules for the games, whether that be a game of road hockey or soccer or maybe Pokemon cards. Let children make their own punishments to rule infractions and decide how they collectively determine success and winning. Trust kids to work things out unless they get really out of hand. A sense of competence is earned by doing what shows up in any competitive situation: school tests and marks, sports, music, dance, or games of any kind. Mental health issues may begin at this stage, including depression, anxiety, neurodiversity expressions like ADHD or autism, or other education problems. How they match with a school setting will likely determine how well they do with both teachers and students. The fifth stage is called adolescence, and in this stage, there is an identity versus role confusion exploration. The adolescent, ages 12 to 17, is reaching new heights of independence and is beginning to experiment and put together his or her identity. Identity formation is a key part of human development from conception, but prior to this stage, the alignment with the parents is the child's most important consideration. Only with puberty and changes to the adolescent's brain capacity does this shift to an individual exploration. Problems with communication and sudden emotional and physical changes are common at this stage. This is both physical and hormonal, as well as psychological. Role confusion is best understood as role instability, as adolescents often try on different roles with great variability, making it difficult for adults to know who the adolescent really is. Of course, parents often like some roles better than others and may have views that oppose the adolescent as to which role is better than another. It is common for adolescents to limit their identity considerations to those that are acceptable for the parents until they physically move out of the family home and leave for school or work. Stage 6 is the young adulthood stage, where there's an intimacy versus isolation exploration. At this stage, ages 18 to 40, the individual begins sharing with others more, including people outside of the family. If the individual is successful in this stage of development, he or she will build satisfying relationships that have a sense of commitment, safety, and care. If not, they may fear commitment and experience isolation, loneliness, and depression. This is true for intimate relationships as well as friendships and a general community. Individuals may float through a variety of friendships and relationships and cycle through many university, college, majors, or jobs in testing out what they want their life to be like. Some individuals will have a long-term relationship or two, a series of monogamous or open relationships, while others may be mostly single during their 20s and 30s. Women's interest in having children will strongly influence this stage for both men and women and make the second half of it often dominated by this question if it hasn't come up or been settled beforehand. The seventh stage is called middle adulthood, generativity versus stagnation. And in the second to last stage, ages 40 to 65, the individual is likely established in their career, relationship, and family. If the individual is not established and contributing to society, they may feel stagnant and unproductive. If the individual has been laid off or forced to retire early, this may lead to stagnation and feelings of being stuck, and it is most critical during this stage. Many people often find great joy in their hobbies, interests, and volunteer opportunities in this stage. They are active, productive, and connected. For individuals who have made sacrifices for others earlier in their lives, this stage offers greater freedom with more discretional time and income than any other stage of life. And the final stage, stage 8, is late adulthood. And this is ego integrity versus despair. Finally, late adulthood, ages 65 and above, usually brings reduced activity and productivity. Depending on the previous stages, this can either be embraced as a reward for one's contributions or be met with guilt or dissatisfaction. Successfully navigating this stage will protect the individual from feeling depressed or hopeless as they face their end of life and help the individual appreciate these final years and opportunities. Some people seem wired to focus on the many cascading losses that this stage brings: loss of international travel, loss of driving, loss of walking, and finally, death of partners or friends. Each of these stages builds upon the previous one, and if one stage is not mastered, the individual cannot progress. The ages associated with each stage are not necessarily when this stage is mastered, on average, but rather they are the earliest that these stages are mastered. In actuality, individuals often get stuck at the previous earlier age stages, and many adults die never maturing past the first stage of trust. On a more hopeful note, it is never too late to go back to the early stages and attempt to master them with different people than the original parents. In my future videos, I will tell you how to apply these stages to everyday life and to understand how to help your child master these stages. It will also help you reparent yourself and unblock your own personal identity development.